Are we live?
Yep, go ahead, Jim.
Hello, this is Jim Ryan with Vermont DEC in the Stormwater Program, here to talk today about the Municipal Roads Stormwater General Permit being reissued in this fall and into January 2023. And here we go. The Municipal Roads Stormwater Permit was developed as part of Act 64, the Vermont Clean Water Act, which was passed in 2015. Over a 2-year period, Vermont DEC and stakeholder partners, including the League of Cities and Towns and regional planning commissions, DEC and VTrans staff and programs, developed the Municipal Roads Stormwater General Permit by holding core team meetings monthly for nearly 2 years in developing the first 5-year permit cycle, which was effective in January 2018. Municipalities had to apply for coverage with a notice of intent or an NOI and pay some fees. And the major deliverable in the first 5-year permit cycle was to develop a road erosion inventory of hydrologically connected road segments and begin bringing those road segments that were not in compliance up to the standards in the 2021-2022 field season. We are currently at the end of the first 5-year permit cycle this fall of 2022, and we will be transitioning to the second 5-year permit cycle, which will begin in January of 2023. And some major deliverables for that second 5-year permit cycle will be to develop a second road erosion inventory. So one road erosion inventory due each 5-year permit cycle, and that second road erosion inventory will be due in October 31st, 2027. Additionally, towns will have to pay annual fees and also have an annual report due on April 1st. A hydrologically connected road is one that's within 100 feet of a water resource. A municipal road that drains to or crosses or bisects a water resource. A municipal road segment that is within the DEC river corridor, which is delineated on the Agency of Natural Resources Atlas. And for closed drainage systems, a catch basin outfall or outlet within 500 feet of a water resource. Water resources include perennial streams, intermittent streams. Those are streams that run for part of the year, wetlands, lakes, and ponds. And during the road erosion inventory process or during updates to road segments, the connectivity status can change. Non-connected road segments are not part of this permit. We have approximately 55% average statewide, which varies from town to town, percent of connected road segments. So that's classes 1, 2, 3, and 4 that are in close proximity to water resources and therefore covered under the permit. This is a screenshot of the Agency of Natural Resources Atlas, the municipal roads theme or layer, and any colored segments. Road segment is 328 feet long or 100 meters in length. And each road segment has a unique identification number, and each road erosion inventory determines the compliance of each road segment. The colors represent red being does not meet or the worst score on the erosion inventory, to orange meaning partially meets, to green meaning fully meets, and yellow is not enough data to make the calculation. The white segments are non-connected and therefore not under the permit, but you can see from the screen we have roads crossing streams or next to lakes. They come up with a color indicating they're connected. When we inventory roads, we look to determine if there's any erosion happening within the road cross-section. So what type of erosion, whether it's rill or a shallow erosion, 1 inch to 12 inches deep, or gully erosion of a steep, more severe erosion of 12 inches plus, in which part of the road cross-section the erosion is taking place. These are some typical questions that are asked for our open drainage roads. So those are roads that have ditches. Does your road have a good crown? Are the road shoulders lower than the travel lane? If no, do you have an adequate ditch? Is your ditch stone lined if 8% or higher slope? Is your ditch lined, stone lined, or have check dams or true cross culverts for road slopes within the 5 to 7.99% range? Are your ditches turned away from water or stable? Any road segment with a slope of less than 5% can be grass lined. Are your drainage, intermittent stream, and driveway culverts adequately sized and not eroding? We have certain, what we call exemptions in the feasibility section of the permit, which means that if any of these items bulleted here are found within the road segment, road practices, required practices do not have to be installed. So historic trees, it's an example of a historic tree in the picture there, historic stone walls, buried utilities, excessive ledge, lakeshore vegetation, any practice that would be implemented that would trigger the acquisition of an easement or purchase of property is exempt from being implemented. In addition, any DEC permits such as a wetlands permit or lakeshore permit, stream alteration permit, or federal such as a FEMA Army Corps of Engineer permit is needed to put in any practices. The practice is exempt. And also something new in this permit cycle, any practice that would make the road travel lane unsafe or for public safety, that practice does not have to be installed. This requirement is the same in the current permit as it is in the forthcoming next 5-year cycle. There's an erosion control requirement. Any bare soils on connected road segments need to be stabilized within 5 days of disturbance. Stabilization includes seed and mulch, hydroseeding, or stone stabilization. We see this in the fall, typically when towns are doing their ditch work, and we are requiring towns to stabilize those ditches with seed mulch or hydroseed or stone stabilization. The graphic on the left are some different road crowns, crown surface on the bottom, insloping towards the high bank or outsloping towards the low bank. As I mentioned before, we have reconvened the core team of our stakeholder partners to assist DEC in the reissuance of the MRGP, the Municipal Roads General Permit. For the second 5-year permit cycle, that group has been meeting for nearly a year, once a month, and guiding this process again. And as I mentioned before, the same stakeholder group from the first permit cycle, various programs at VTrans, local roads and better roads programs, program managers, DEC staff, regional planning commission staff, and directors, and the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. The second 5-year permit cycle will run approximately January 26th of 2023 through January 26th of 2028. Towns will have to reapply for coverage under the new permit. That means filling out a notice of intent form and paying a processing and administrative fee totaling $640. New annual report forms, it's a 1-page form, will be due on April 1st of each year. There'll be a new road erosion inventory, REI, that needs to be completed for all connected roads by October of 2027. The road erosion inventories each permit cycle give DEC an idea if the practices that are being installed are working and are being maintained. There is a new road erosion inventory compliance scoring this permit round. and it'll be based on the percent of the road segment having the required practices in place, which is very similar to what we have in the current cycle. But in addition to that, we'll be looking at the degree of erosion, rill or gully erosion at different parts of the road cross-section, and we will also factor in road slope. So a road that does not have the required practices in place, has severe or gully erosion occurring, and it's on a steep slope, that will be our highest priority for upgrades to our new standards. We have the same implementation requirement standard as we currently have. That's 7.5% of non-compliant segments need to be upgraded annually. Towns have the discretion of where those segments are upgraded throughout town as long as they meet the 7.5% requirement. And as part of the very high priority segments, 20% of those the worst sites, if you will, from a water quality perspective, have to be included within that 7.5% per year. Another new item is DEC may assess individual road segments ahead of the new road erosion inventory deadline when there's a serious potential road water quality threat. In other words, if a DEC staff gets called out to look at a complaint about sedimentation from a municipal road entering a water resource, even if that's not the result of current town road construction, DEC may assess that segment or those segments contributing to the sedimentation. If the DEC staff assesses those segments and they are scored as very high priority, the town will have 2 years upon notification from DEC to bring that segment or those segments up to the new standards. That's a new item, so we can target sites that are causing significant erosion, sedimentation to water resources. Segment upgrades and annual reporting. Segments documented by reassessing each individual segments. So out of the 7.5% of non-compliant segments, that minimum number that needs to be upgraded annually, towns have to reassess those individual segments to show DEC that they're upgrading non-compliant segments to the MRGP standards. They will use a DEC developed road erosion inventory tool for that. And any segments upgraded to fully meet status starting in the 2023 field season, those segments will not have to be reassessed as part of the townwide reassessment. So in other words, if towns are reporting 7.5% annually for several years, before they complete their townwide inventory, they do not have to reassess the segments that they assessed starting in 2023. The new road erosion inventory app tool, currently DEC and the Agency of Digital Services have developed an app or an application on the Survey 123 field form, and we'll be upgrading and updating that form to reflect the new scoring. The new DEC app will be required to be used by towns or any organization working on behalf of towns or consultants. In the past, DEC had allowed other organizations to use their own developed apps to conduct the road erosion inventories, but because the scoring will be part of the app itself and not done in the database, we're requiring the new DEC app tool be used starting in the 2023 field season. As I mentioned, the new app will be ready in the spring of 2023. DEC and the Agency of Digital Services will be providing road erosion inventory training in early spring of 2023. for those entities that are assisting towns in their road erosion inventory, or towns themselves that would like to learn how to do their own inventories. The baseline, or the original road erosion inventory, which was completed in the first 5-year permit cycle, will be used to establish the implementation requirements until the new road erosion inventory is completed. Kind of a minor change for the new permit cycle. We're just changing the road type names. Each road type has different standards, and the survey form will reflect that road type when the road erosion inventories are being conducted and ask different questions. So what we had is paved roads with curbs and catch basins will be closed drainage roads. Paved and gravel roads with open drainage systems will now be called open drainage roads. And we also, the class 4 roads name will stay the same. One change to the standards that will be in the second permit cycle is what we have for the non-compliant intermittent stream crossings. So if we have an intermittent stream crossing that is failing because it is undersized, or it needs to be replaced, or a new intermittent stream culvert that's being put in, we are requiring the active channel width. Currently in the original 5-year permit cycle, we only recommend that, but we will be now requiring that. It's about 75% of the bank full width, as indicated in the graph, or in the graphic. It's generally the scour line or vegetative line in the channel. It's relatively easy to measure in the field with some training that we will conduct as part of the road erosion inventory training. And that's only for non-compliant intermittent stream crossings. Stone headers or head walls and outlet stabilization will still be required for road slopes 5% or greater. That's the same as they currently are. So in the field, we often ask, what type of culvert is it that you're looking at? And we put the culverts into 3 different baskets. We have drainage, cross culverts, and also in that basket are driveway culverts. There's no defined channel below the structure. We have a 15-inch minimum diameter for driveway culverts, 18-inch diameter recommended. And for cross culverts that are conveying road drainage from one side of the road to the other, we have an 18-inch minimum for that. For intermittent streams, has a defined channel bed, but dries up for several months, most years, we are requiring the active channel width. And for perennial streams that run year round, those will require the bank full width, which will require a DEC stream alteration permit that is the same as it currently is. Here's some profiles and cross sections of the intermittent stream crossing, and one other new requirement is for intermittent stream crossings in the 4 to 6 foot diameter range. We're requiring that those be buried or embedded approximately 20% of the culvert diameter. They do not have to be backfilled with material, but just buried below grade. Some erosion pictures from a poorly installed culvert with poor backfill compaction and no header or head wall. It's a graphic, so most of the practices in the municipal roads general permit will refer to the VTrans Better Roads Manual that VTrans and DEC jointly developed back in 2019. So all of the practices that are in the permit have these details in the VTrans Better Roads Manual, including the stone apron at the culvert outlet. Okay, some information about our public meetings. There'll be a comment responsiveness report prepared after the public comment period ends on October 24th. And the permit will be reissued in November of this year, 2022. Towns will then begin applying for coverage, fill out the notice of intent form, and pay the fees mentioned earlier before January 26th. There continue to be funding sources for both completing the road erosion inventory through Better Roads Category A grants, and for implementation, the Better Roads Category B grant and the Municipal Grants and Aid Program for upgrading segments to meet the standard that are administered by VTrans. And VTrans staff and DEC staff are available to provide outreach and technical assistance. And DEC will continue our partnership with VTrans Local Roads in holding both virtual and in-person road roundtable trainings where we have a discussion on how to install various practices, what equipment to use, and it's kind of an interactive discussion and covers grading and crowning, berm removal, grass and stone line ditch installation, culvert installation and sizing, and also covers the municipal roads general permit and grant funding sources. And here is our website and my contact information at the bottom. Okay, thank you.